And we love all married couples to come out and fellowship with us and just have a good time with us. And if there's anything that I can do in that regards, let us know. I mean, I would love to help any way I can. All right, so this morning we're going to continue in our study of believing loyalty. And we're going to be in Luke chapter 22, verses 31 through 34. And by looking at believing loyalty, we're going to see how Peter got from this fisherman that jumped off this boat to follow Jesus to Acts chapter 4, where he is preaching the gospel and proclaiming it with boldness and courageous and conviction. Peter is one of those characters we like. Like, we love to see his audacity a lot of times. He's outspoken, he's bold, he's confident. To say basically whatever is on his mind, and then his zeal. Man, he is on fire for the Lord. But how does he go from this backwoods fisherman to this fisher of men? What is his proof of believing loyalty? And we're going to look at that as we go. Now, a little bit about me. I don't know if you know this, but I love sports. Like, I really love sports. My job on the side is to cover sports and take care of injured athletes, but I watch sports all the time. And then when I come home, you know what I do? I watch sports. My wife cannot understand that. She doesn't have a clue why I would want to cover all day and then come home and watch the Razorbacks play. It's not always a good day for the Razorbacks, though. But one thing that I love about sports is that you can mess up. You can get knocked down. You can strike out 1,000 times. You can get pulverized at the line of scrimmage, but what do? You get back in the box. You get up. You move on to the next play. Babe Ruth. I would say most people in this room have heard of Babe Ruth. He is considered to be one of the greatest baseball players of all time. Did you know he had over 8,000 at-bats? He struck out over 1,300 times. But is he remembered for that? Is he remembered that he struck out 1,300 times? No, the great Bambino is remembered for hitting 714 home runs. Now, he could have, on that 1,000th time he struck out, he could have been like, I'm done. I'm tired of striking out. I am through with baseball. But no, he kept going. He kept getting in the box, and he kept knocking it out of the park. He got back up. Another one. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali is known for his fancy footwork. I mean, he had speed in him, and he could move around his opponents. He had that side-to-side head movement that no one, very few could touch him. I mean, he went 56-5. He was a bad man, right? I mean, when you did not want to get in the ring with Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali, he had a plan every time he got in that ring. You know what it was? To knock that other person down. But what happened when he got punched in the mouth? Everybody has a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? What happened when he got punched in the mouth? Well, he has this saying or this quote. It says, you don't lose if you get knocked down. When do you lose? You lose when you don't get up. So a proof of believing loyalty is when we strike out for the 1,000th time and we get back in the box. We fall down or we get knocked down, punched in the mouth, but we still get up. This morning we're looking at Peter, and he's about to take an uppercut to the jaw. He's about to get knocked down. But he has someone in his corner to intercede for him. Our story this morning takes place in the upper room in Jerusalem. And Jesus is reclining. They're all fellowshipping here, and they're talking. And, I mean, I don't know how Jesus is having a good time just since he knows what's about to happen. But they're all fellowshipping together. And then Jesus says this one thing. He says, one of you is about to betray me. Man, I can just imagine crickets in that room. And they all start arguing about this. And then Judas looks at Jesus, and he was like, is it me? And Jesus said, yep. And so Judas leaves. Jesus tells them he's about to die. He's going to suffer. They institute the Lord's Supper. And you would think that the disciples would have some compassion for Jesus. I mean, he's going through all of this. But you know what they start to do? They start to argue about who is the greatest disciple. You see, they didn't get it. They didn't understand. just didn't get it. And then we come to Luke 22, verses 31 through 34, and I'll read that for us. Starting in verse 31, it says, Simon, Simon, behold, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. But I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And you, Peter, when once you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. But Peter said to Jesus, Lord, with you I am ready to go both to prison and to death. And Jesus said to Peter, I say to you, Peter, the rooster will not crow today until you have denied 3 times that you know me. This morning we're going to start at the end. We're going to start at verse 33 and 34. And we're going to look at Peter's pride. Have you ever heard of a mountaintop experience? I mean, most of this room has probably experienced that. You've been on a high for Christ. Maybe you've been on a mission trip or a church camp, or you've just seen something in your life that is like, man, God is so good. And I mean, it just leaves you feeling like you know the plan, you're in a perfect place, you know what's going on. And no one can doubt that Peter had experienced these mountaintop times for 3+ years, 3 years. He had experienced some amazing things. He had seen, one, he was called by the Messiah, the creator of the world. I mean, this man, he was a fisherman. He was a fisherman. And so he got out of the boat when he was called by the Messiah. He witnessed demons being cast out of these people. Not only did he watch demons being cast out, but he got to watch them cast into a bunch of pigs, and then those pigs ran over the cliff. And remember, Peter was a Jew. He hated pigs, so this was probably a big moment for him, watching those pigs jump over this cliff. He watched Jesus heal men and women and men left and right. He watched Jesus calm the storms. This man had the power to control the wind, control earth, control the sea, and even control who walks on water. Peter is the only disciple who is able to walk on water. Not only that, Jesus changed his name. Last week we learned about Caesarea Philippi and how gross it was. But in this moment, Jesus turns Simon's name into Peter, meaning rock. And Jesus changes his name to get Peter to remember what their purpose is, what they're there for. To remember Caesarea Philippi and how they're going to build the church there. He's in the Messiah's inner circle. So Peter is thinking he is kind of a big deal. Unfortunately, Peter is about to take a right hook to the jaw and about to fall off that mountain. Peter's problem wasn't with what he said. I'm pretty sure he really meant what he said. When he said, Lord, I would die with you. I would go to prison with you. I mean, Peter in the garden, he pulls a sword and cuts a man's ear off. He is ready to go when the Lord is there, right? He is ready to die for Jesus. But really what Peter forgot, I mean, he told Jesus, I will protect you. He told the creator of the world, I will protect you. What the audacity of the confidence that he had. He said, Jesus, I got this. And one of Peter's greatest strengths became his weakness. He started relying on himself instead of on God. And Jesus told Peter this, and I can kind of see in the conversation Peter talking about how he would die and how he would go to prison for him. And in my mind, this is what I would do. I would roll my eyes. And I would say, Peter, you're literally about to deny me tonight. Are we ever like this? How many of you have experienced mountaintop times? Again, the church camp, the mission field, where you've seen God just do amazing things. And you're on fire. Like you can't wait to get home, to go to Walmart, to speak to whoever you can tell about Jesus, what he has done for you and what he is going to do for them. You've made the decision to follow Jesus no matter what. Go to prison, die for him, but then you get punched in the mouth. You get knocked down. You strike out. Well, some of my own experiences, some of you may know that my family and I were missionaries to Peru. And we started this journey on what was called deputation. And some of you may know what that is, but some of you may not. But we would go to churches and try to get them to partner with us to help fund us in Iquitos, Peru. And so deputation started off pretty easy. We were on the mission, and we were rolling really good. We got to 50% really fast. And I started to think, man, I'm kind of good at this thing. I can go, and here's the thing. My first church that I went to, they picked us up like that. And I was like, I am rolling, I'm good, I really thought that God was going to use Michael McConnaughey to be the greatest missionary since Paul. I started to think all about myself. And you know what happened? We got to 50% really fast. And then I started to think about myself. How can I get us on the field faster? How can I do this? And everything stopped. We had this target move date to move with the Parsleys, and that got pushed out. And man, I'm telling you, the shame and the guilt, like, God, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing? Is this what's, I mean, you asked me to go to Peru, and now everything is just, we've hit a wall. It's just stopped. But what I started to do is I started to rely on myself like Peter started to rely on himself. I started to think that I was a big deal, and I'm not. I'm as low as it can be. And it's because I relied on myself, my own strength, and not Christ. Satan had started to sift me just like he was sifting Peter, which brings me to that process, the sifting process. We see that in verse 31. Jesus starts off with Simon, Simon. He wants Peter's attention. He wants him to listen. Most parents understand how to get their child's attention, don't you? Because your mama got your attention at one point. My mama, when she wouldn't want me to do something, she would say, Michael Robert! And immediately my ears would perk up. And I would be like, uh-oh, what's going on? What should I, don't touch that stove, all right? Don't touch that muffler. And I would listen, and not always, because I touched the muffler. I wasn't very smart. I should have listened. So we read Jesus saying, Simon, Simon, Satan has demanded permission to sift you like wheat. And not only Peter, he is talking to the disciples in this moment as well, but he's talking to Peter and everybody else is listening. He's saying, disciples, Peter, Satan has demanded to sift you like wheat. And the imagery here is so interesting. Farmers today, and I can't claim to be an expert. I'm not a farmer. I'm the least amount of a farmer, okay? But I can just imagine today they have these big combines and stuff that sift the wheat for them, and they put them in the machine that does all that. But back in the biblical process, in the biblical days, they would take this wheat, and they would gather it up from the field, and it would be dirty, and it would have these husks on it, and chaff, and the dirt, and all this, and then they would beat it on the ground. They would try to break it open, break those husks off. And then what they would do, once they got done with that, and they would see that the husks were still on, they would lay it out on the ground, and they would have a donkey pulling a millstone over it to crush it, to pulverize it. And after that, they would take it, and they would put it in the sifter, and it may have just been a blanket that they would put it in, but they would go to where the wind is blowing, and they would throw it up in the air, and the wheat would come down, and the chaff would scatter. So what happens is when Satan is sifting you, he wants to pulverize you, he wants to crush you, but he also wants you to scatter, leave. Don't get back up. Jesus is telling Peter and the other disciples that Satan has requested to shake you so violently that your world is about to turn upside down. And I want to be perfectly clear here. We, as Christ followers, will be sifted. We will be sifted, and that can be scary, can't it? No one wants to go through a violent shaking. No one wants to be pulverized or scattered away, but Christ has granted that. You see, we live in this imperfect world. It's filled with sin and destruction, and as much as we don't want Satan to do that, to scatter us like wheat, to crush us, he has been allowed to do it. Has your faith ever been sifted? I would say if you're a child of God, your faith has been attacked in some way. And I can't speak for everyone in this room, but I can speak for myself. It started on deputation with the sifting, and it didn't stop there. When Lauren and Emerson and I were moving to Peru, I thought we had the good plan. We thought we had the plan down perfectly, and it was good. I thought I was going to have adventures of preaching the gospel in the jungles and reaching the lost and teaching pastors how to reach their world in this foreign country, doing whatever the Lord had me to do in Iquitos, Peru. So we went on deputation, then we quit our jobs, we sold our possessions, we said goodbyes, and not all the goodbyes were good because Nana wasn't very happy with us. And we packed up and we went to meet the Parsleys in Peru. And I expected to be in Iquitos for years, working, serving, doing God's will. Well, about 10 months in, we were preparing to go teach seminary in the jungle, and my leg got real swollen, like big. I mean, I have big legs, but man, they were giant. And I suspected I had a blood clot. So we didn't go to the jungle. We actually went, we made that decision not to go out because there was no medical help out there if something happened. And so at first we went to this ultrasound guy, and it's on the side of the road. And if you've ever been to Iquitos or have seen pictures, Iquitos is gross. I mean, it's got some nasty parts. But we went to this ultrasound guy that just had a machine in his shop, and on the ground there's trash and dirt, and you go lay on this table, and he puts the gel on, and he says, "See, Rombo." And man, my head just started spinning. And then from that, we went to the hospital, and the hospital was the best one in Iquitos, but it's still a third world country. And they poked and prodded on me for 5 days, and Lauren still has pictures, but they had these balloon-looking things on my chest, and I could not figure out what they are, and I still have no idea what they were. But you just imagine, like, my head was spinning. Lauren's head was spinning. We were in a foreign country. We didn't quite know the language perfectly, and man, they were spitting these words out left and right, and I was done. I couldn't figure out, like, why God would do this. And I wrestled with this. Lauren and I wrestled with this for weeks. And then we made the decision to come back to the States to get checked out, and ended up I'm on blood thinners for the rest of my life. And when you're in the jungle and blood thinners, that wasn't a good combination. So we made the decision to stay home. And I tell you, that wasn't the hardest decision. It was a very difficult one, but it wasn't the hardest. What was hard, what was going on in my head, what Satan was sifting around in my head. I had daily questions and thoughts of, you're a failure. You're an embarrassment. How could they even think that they would send you out to the jungles of Peru to preach? I'm an embarrassment. What am I worth to my family now? Like, I just uprooted us. I'm sure there's going to be some I told you so's. Lord, why would you send me out just to come back 10 months later? Why would you allow this to happen? What do I do now? How do I get over this? And on and on and on and on it went. And Lauren, if you talk to her, she'll tell you I was depressed for a couple of years. I mean, I still think about those things. I was being attacked, and I felt like my faith was being pulverized, like it was being ripped apart. Now, my sifting wasn't an open denial of Christ. It wasn't a physical issue. It was an attack on my mind, my self-worth. How could my family value and my church value me? And it just felt like I was being ripped apart. And I can almost guarantee that I'm not the only one in this room that has gone through that. Maybe not the exact same scenario, but you have gone through that. So what now? What am I supposed to do when my whole world is crumbling? Well, just like Muhammad Ali had said, you don't lose when you get knocked down. You lose if you don't get up. So you have to get up. Now, if it was Michael McConnaughhay saying, get up off that ground, I wouldn't get up. There's no way that I could. Satan is this worthy adversary, right? I mean, he knows how to push your buttons. He knows things about you that you don't want known. He knows those things, and he can push them. And so it wasn't Michael McConnaughhay saying, get up. It's Christ saying, get up. You're not alone. You have an advocate, an intercessor, a Savior to help with that. And we see Jesus' answer in verse 32, his answer to the sifting, to those attacks, with a prayer. It says, but I have prayed for you, that your faith may not fail. And you, Peter, when once you have turned again, strengthen your brothers. Now, I'm not as outspoken as Peter, or I don't think that I'm as outspoken as Peter, but when I hear that from Jesus, I would have been like, whoa, 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 Jesus, I don't think you said that right. You said you were going to stop Satan from attacking me, right? You said you weren't going to let him rip me apart, pulverize me, scatter me into the wind. You said that, right? And Jesus said, nah. I prayed for your faith, that it would not fail. Let's think about this for a second. Jesus understands this world, doesn't he? He understands because he was human. Now, don't get me into the human/God, deity, all that. My finite mind does not understand that. But he knows trials. He knows what we go through because he went through it. In Matthew chapter 4, it tells us that Jesus was driven into the wilderness for 40 days. And in that 40 days, he went through trials and temptations by Satan. So he understands you. And so he says to Peter, I prayed for you, not to stop it because it's coming, but that your faith will not fail. Failure is not that we won't sin. It's not that we won't make mistakes. Failure is not getting back up. Failure is letting your faith go away. Failure here is when we are sifted, how do you respond? Failure for Peter is saying, I'm done. Enough. The Messiah is dead. I just can't take it anymore. I'm giving up. But believing loyalty is getting back up and turning back to Jesus and getting to work. In John 17, it shows us that he didn't just pray for Peter, he prayed for the disciples, and he also prayed for you. We'll just say, John 17:20, it says, I do not ask for these only, talking about the disciples. I do not ask for the disciples only, but also for those who will believe in me through their word. He's talking about you, me. He's praying for that. Your faith will not fail in these times of sifting, that you will endure, that you will get back up and turn to him. And when we get up, when we turn back to him, we see our purpose. He said, so when you turn back, you strengthen your brothers. You see, they are all going through this. It wasn't just Peter who ran away. It was all the disciples that scattered. They all scattered. Their whole world was turned upside down. So what now? What are they supposed to do? And I don't think we understand the influence Peter had on the disciples. Not that it was his faith, but he had influence, just like people have influence over you. Peter was a leader among them, and he watched what they were going through because he went through it. And I didn't realize that in John chapter 21, it said 6 of them followed him. In John chapter 21, verses 2 and 3, it says, Simon Peter, Thomas called the twin, Nathanael of Cana in Galilee, the sons of Zebedee, and 2 others of his disciples were together in Galilee. This is after the garden. This was after the crucifixion. This was after all of that. So they're on the bank of the sea. And Simon Peter said to them, I'm going fishing. And they said to him, we'll go too. So Peter had influence over these men. This is the reason Jesus told him, when you turn back, strengthen your brothers. How Peter responded made a difference. Peter was an influencer before an influencer was a thing. When Peter turned back, he was able to mature, to grow, to minister to his brothers. You see, Satan, he wanted to pulverize you, crush him, and scatter him away. But God said, nah, you may be crushed, you may be pulverized, but I can still use that. I can still use you. And he used it for good. Peter matured, he grew, he ministered to his brothers. He was able to build them up through this time of trial. Listen, Christ knows you are being sifted. Each one of us in this room has our own stories. Right? Everyone in this room has their stories of their attack or their faith being attacked. And you may not have denied Christ. You may not have uprooted your family and then been depressed when you had to come back. But you've been knocked down. And believing loyalty is getting back up, is enduring that knockdown, getting back in that box, ready for round 2. And then strengthening others through those same things. So what do we do? What do I do when Satan has requested to sift you? Well, we can kind of go back through. We got to get up. And again, it's not your power that helps you get up. It's Christ's power. You got to get up, ready for round 2, because, sifting is coming. But through him, we can get up. And then we got to turn back. Peter messed up. We mess up. Those things happen. Now, we don't have a license to sin, but bad things happen. We're going to mess up. But we have to confess and realize that we made the mistake, and we got to turn back to him. So at that point, we're able to go to our brothers. We are able to use our stories, our testimonies, to strengthen those around us. So we got to get up, we got to turn back, and we got to build others up. Let's pray. Father God, I thank you so much for this day. Father, I pray that my words fall away and yours shout out. Father, each one of us in this room has our own story that we have dealt with, and I ask you that maybe we are being sifted today, that we get up from that. We realize that the only way that we can get up is through you, and that we turn back to you. So we can use those instances, those struggles to help someone else. Father, I thank you just for your grace and your mercy, and that you do have complete control over what's going on, that you understand what we went through, and that you can have compassion on us and grace with us. Father, I pray that if there is someone in this room that does not know you, that they come to you today before it's too late. In your name that I pray. Amen.